together as a team with my wife included. We pulled up my Strava feed to look to see if there were any disruptions or anything they could pick up on before having this heart attack.
Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Everdell Warwick. Warwick runs on Instagram, YouTube. Really happy to have you here for this episode with Cassidy. Before we dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you that you can get the Marathon Podcast hat or the Marathon hat made by CLA on the marathonpodcast.com. No shipping fees, $49, and that's what you're paying. I also would love for you to join me on and the Marathon Podcast on Strava, the Strava group there. I will try to be more active there going forward, but join the group among hundreds of other listeners. Also, I really just want to thank you all for listening, for being here on the podcast and spending your time with me and the guests on your runs. That is something that I think is super cool about this community. It's really been fun to see how it's been growing over the last year. So I guess it's hard to start this episode without just quickly touching on what happened last week. I did not run much, and that is because I got married. So I have a ring on my finger, and I'm so proud to be the husband of Christine, and Christine being my wife. And yeah, that also, I guess, like what I said in the last episode, it comes with a little bit of a name change. My last name is still Warwick, but my middle name is now Everdell. How cool is that? And like I said, I didn't really run much. Last week was just mostly about having fun, enjoying time with family. And in an ideal world, perfect world, I would have been running much more. But honestly, I was just so tired and didn't feel like I had the energy to run at all. And yeah, just wanted to focus on other things. And I think that's the right thing and right decision to make every now and then. In today's episode, we're having Cassidy on. And Cassidy and I, we've been chatting, emailing back and forth for months, actually. And we've been trying to make this podcast episode happen. And it's been so much fun getting to know Cassidy throughout these months and also learning how his big challenge, having like a heart attack, SCAD. He'll tell you more about what this actually is without even knowing it. Like there were definitely signs, but he didn't really feel or think. It didn't start to, like, he couldn't even start to think that this was a heart attack. And now he's back running. And it was incredible to hear that journey, hear how he went from being a very fit runner to not being that at all, just almost in the blink of an eye, and then getting back to running. So this episode, I think, is really inspiring, educational, and also hope it gives hope. I really feel like we got to touch on a lot of things during this conversation. I hope that you will enjoy it as much as I did. And yeah, enjoy your run if that's what you're doing listening to this. Cassidy, welcome to the Marathon Podcast. We've been chatting for months, and finally we're here.
Yes, finally. It's exciting.
I was just about to ask you before we started recording how your Boston Marathon experience and the race was. Will you share a little bit about this year's race? I guess this was this your seventh race, Boston Marathon
This
race,
is my sixth race,
sixth. Yeah.
and it went really well. It was a PR. I've probably run 2 or 3 dozen marathons at this point. Started in 2009 in Richmond, Virginia, and, the tailwind, the weather, the confidence, getting back to Boston after taking last year off because of some medical situation I was undergoing, and we can talk about that here momentarily. I walked in with a lot of confidence. I'm 43 years old. I'm a father of 3. Um, and just having that experience was beautiful, awesome. And I know you and I just spoke a little bit before we started recording. Seeing you at the starting line or at the tent was really cool too. So, yeah, it was a great day. I came through the half at 125 and I was feeling great. I was looking at my heart rate, mid 130s. If you want to look at Strava, That's I looked back at it pretty closely. So mid 130s, feeling great. Obviously, I knew getting a 17 to 21 for all of us. That's the challenging part of the course in Boston. Got through the hills. The last hill was my slowest mile at 7:01, and I still felt pretty good. Um, my left hamstring and my left knee started tightening a little bit for the last 3 or 4 miles. But I think looking back at it, I did a lot of not a lot, but I did some strength work with my quads because I've always had issues with my quads giving out, but I kinda neglected my hamstrings. So maybe as I get ready for Chicago in October, I'll focus a little bit more on my hamstring strength. But it was a great day. My friends were out there. My wife was out there who supported me for 19 years. It's our 20th anniversary here next,
Wow.
month. And it was just
Congrats.
Thank you very much, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think it's the best Monday of the entire year.
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting the chills when you're talking about this. It's beautiful. And you did say that you ran a new P or got a new PR. What was your time?
2:54:56.
Awesome. And what was
Yeah.
your old one?
2:56 in 2019 at the Milwaukee Lakefront Marathon here in
Mhm.
Wisconsin, and my old Boston PR was 2:57 high. So,
Wow.
yeah, it was great.
Good job. Congrats on that.
Thank you, thank you.
Before we keep talking, you did a little bit of a presentation here, and I'm gonna let you present yourself a bit more so we get to know you a bit more. But before
Okay.
we do that, obviously, as a former speed skater, you are based in Wisconsin, where we have Eric Heide and Jordan Stolz, and we talked a little bit about it before, and I'm kind of curious, just like living there. Did you notice during the Olympics that things were going on with the speed skating and Jordan being as big as he's become now? Did you notice anything during the
Yeah,
Olympics?
I mean, absolutely. I think, Jordan was not a household name before the Olympics, but he quickly became one, and especially for us Wisconsin folks, knowing that he was in our backyard. He's only about a mile or sorry, about an hour south of Green Bay, Wisconsin, where I reside, was really special, and I don't know if you've heard of the Birkebeiner, the American Birkebeiner in Hayward,
Mm.
Wisconsin?
Yeah, yeah, I actually have. Yeah.
Okay, so I've done that now for the past 9 years in a row.
Hmm.
So, with my brother, and there's a lot of festivities behind that, but I know that, my buddies that I do that event with, we don't race it. I try to race Boston, but I'm not very good at skiing. But anyways, it's, 55K, and we were talking about Jordan the whole time, and the Olympics were just winding down as the Birkebeiner weekend in February, was going on, so it was awesome. I can't believe how well he did. Testament to all that hard work and dedication.
Yeah, he's so good. And like, obviously, I'm sure most people listening to this, they won't really understand what we're talking about now. We're talking about speed skating and, the best speed skater in the world at the moment and
Yeah.
one of the best speed skaters of all time. He's like 21, 22 years old. And it's just amazing what he did. And technically, I think that, there we might never have seen anyone
Yep.
skating as like efficiently as he does. So that's cool. We're not gonna talk a lot about him, but I felt like I had to ask you since I know that you're from the same area, or not.
Yes.
Sorry, that you're based in the same area.
Yeah, he's on the map now, and I'm definitely gonna follow his career pretty closely moving forward, so that was really special to watch.
And I don't know if you've seen that, but so after the Olympics and obviously a lot of the especially if you become an Olympic champion, you get a lot of great sponsor deals and stuff. But a
Absolutely.
lot of the things that he's been doing after has been like ads for cat food and cat stuff because he has cats and he
Yeah,
he loves his cat. And
that's
so
great.
I think it's just amazing that you see this like big speed skier, great athlete, and then with all the sponsor opportunities that he probably has, then he gets like cat food as one of his main sponsors. That's just amazing. I
Yeah,
think it also says a lot about him as a person.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I did say now that, or first I said you're from Wisconsin, where you're based, but I know that that's not really the case. That's where you live, but you're from somewhere else. Why don't you present yourself, like where you're from, what you do when you're not running, and how you first started running.
For sure. So, who I am, right now, currently, I've lived in Green Bay, Wisconsin for the past 14 or 15 years. I moved here after college with my wife, who I met at Marquette University in Milwaukee. Um, and I know I got into running a long now 3 decades ago when I was 13, 14 years old. In 6th grade at the middle school that I went to, the only sports in the fall that were non-cut sports or open to 6th graders, I should say, was tennis and cross country. So I remember, like, the first day of school bringing my tennis racket to school, and I was gonna make a decision at the end of the day which sport to join. Met a kid in my class who actually went on to be, the best man at my wedding, Alex Woodville, and,
Wow.
met a few others, throughout the day, and they had said, "Oh, we're gonna do cross country today." Seemed pretty cool, group, didn't know much about it. I knew running was challenging like it is for all of us, but also exhilarating, and it just gives so much back to us. So, joined the cross country team, ran in middle school, ran in high school, then I picked it up recreationally. I could have never predicted that I, at 43, would be running in the Boston Marathon with a PR, after 30 years of enjoying most arguably the best sport on earth. I mean, obviously other sports are amazing too, but, so yeah, I love running. In my free time, I like to read. I like to, I'm a parent of 3 kids, watch my kids in whatever endeavors they're doing. I have a freshman in high school now who just picked up cross country and track, and he actually got a PR in the 800 last night in Oshkosh, at
Awesome.
a track meet.
Awesome.
So, I'm a coach, co-head coach of a track team. We, won state actually last year, so that was pretty cool. I like to, play my bagpipe. I've played at a few funerals. I have a couple weddings coming up this summer. But yeah, I just try to be kind, nice to everybody I come across. Sometimes I fall short in that, but running has really given me a great community of friends all over America and now all over the world with yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm just
Yeah.
very thankful to have this in my life and to be where I'm at. So
Wow. First thing that I have to ask, the bagpipe. Do you have any like Scottish relatives or something, since you're
uh
into that, or is it just something that you picked up?
so my last name is McGowan. So
Yeah.
I was told my entire life that we were pretty pure Irish folks, but we did 23andMe and it came back at a low percentage. I don't know how accurate that is. But, yeah, I went actually on my honeymoon to Ireland, and I saw
Cool.
a father and his son walk by the tavern that we were spent having, a meal and a couple drinks at one evening, and it was so awesome that I came back, kind of asked seriously, but not seriously for a bagpipe, and then next Christmas, a bagpipe showed up under the tree from my wife and my parents, so I knew I had to learn, and that was probably, 18 years ago, 20 years ago, right at the beginning of my marriage, with Jamie, my lovely wife, and now I've been playing. I've probably got 14, 15 songs, um, Scotland the Brave, Amazing Grace, the classics. So yeah, I actually play in front of Packer games on Packer home games. So if
No
anybody's ever
way.
Yeah, so if anybody's ever there, I play and I put my little tip jar, but people are dancing
What?
around and we're having a great time. So that is always so much fun. And I know the NFL schedule comes out here on Thursday this week. So it's going to be great to kind of put that on my calendar of days I get to be out there for a couple hours with all the fans. And that's like a global team. People from all over come into town just to see the Green Bay Packers play. So it's cool.
Wow. So
Yeah.
so are you then like a part of the whole event, kind of, or is it
Um,
are you showing up, or how does this work?
Yeah, I'm not officially part of the actual team, but I'm outside where the tailgate zone is, and
Mhm.
probably 2 or 3,000, maybe more, come by me as they get ready to go to the game. They stop, everybody takes pictures, we have a great time. I mean, the Lambeau Field seats 79,000, so and there's only like
Wow.
3 or 4 gates, so maybe my thumbprint might be on 10,000 fans that get to go by, so it's really, really cool. So,
That
yeah,
is awesome. That is so cool. I
yeah.
did not know that, but that is great.
Yes, yes. So it's great.
Okay, wow, wow.
Yeah.
So we have to. I think we also need to establish before we continue, and we're gonna kind of go back to more of your running. But like you did mention briefly just when we started talking, and I guess like that was one of the things that you also mentioned when you first reached out to me
Yep,
by email that you had a heart attack a few
yep,
years ago,
yep.
and I want us to like I think that is gonna be like the foundation of our conversation in a lot of ways,
Absolutely.
like
Mhm.
coming back from that. But I also want us to touch on things that like you're running before that, but just to establish so that the listeners understand, what you've been through. Will
Yep.
you say something about when it happened, what happened, and
Sure.
how that was just like, yeah, to experience it and the the time after?
So it was October of 2024, is when I was going through the event that I went through. Um, I remember the first week in October of 24 running with the cross country team because I'm one of the coaches. That's a fall sport here, and only making it like a half a mile away from school before I felt like I needed to like take a knee or sit down or faint. And then I would get home. Man, I must have the flu or something's not quite right. I would have never have at that point put a heart attack on the bingo board. But I remember a couple times in the evening that week, unable to make it from my living room couch, which is about 10 to 20 feet away to my bedroom to my bed. I'd count down in my head 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then try to get up. And I was like, ah, too tired. Don't want to get up. I'm fine right here. And then I'd try to run again the next day at school, and it just wasn't working out. That week going upstairs at school, because 'cause I'm a high school counselor and special ed teacher and coach, I would get, like, a little s I was getting sweaty and breathing hard, and I'm like, "Well, a lot of people have told me once you make it to 40, this is kinda what happens. I guess this is what's happening." So I'm coming up with all these excuses. Um, then I call my buddy, who I gotta give a huge shout out to, Todd Fergus, who also ran the Boston Marathon this past, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he didn't quite have the day that he wanted to, but he was the first American over 50 at the Chicago Marathon this past fall. He's also my cardiologist and really good friend
Mhm.
and training buddy. So I called him on a Saturday morning. "Hey, sorry to bug you, but here are some of the symptoms I'm having. Yeah, let's get you in, checked out on Tuesday." So this is Saturday. Come in on Tuesday, echocardiogram, stress test, a few other things. I went in feeling okay, not great, but feeling a little better. They put me on. I knew something kind of was up when they were going to start my treadmill stress test, and they're like, there was like a 30-minute pause with the nurses because they're all talking and huddling up. I didn't know what they were saying, but they're like, "Hey, we got to kind of figure out if there's a doctor on site right now for you." And
Mm.
I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." I'm asking all these questions. Actually, the one of the nurses in the room was one of my former students, and I'm sure he could see some of the results. And I keep asking him, "Hey, I'm good, right?" And he's like, "Well, um, you are setting a record. We haven't had somebody run for 17 minutes on a treadmill at this inclines." I was like, "Great. I'm setting a record on this incline. They're going to clear me this evening." But he kept saying, "Hey, the doctor will get back to you. He'll give you a call and he'll go through your results. I really can't talk about that." So I respect that. So that night, Dr. Fergus, Todd, my buddy, who's also a big time marathoner, big shout out to him. He called me and said, "Hey, I don't want you to, panic or anything. I hope you're having a great evening." I was at my daughter's, soccer game, and he's like, "Just enjoy the evening, but tomorrow morning at 10 and at noon, I have availability for you to come by. I need you to come in." And of this entire process for the past 2 years, 2 years plus, that was probably my lowest moment. because I knew something was up, right? Like,
Mm.
I have to we can't talk about it on the phone right now. I wanna see you in
But
person. We've gotta have this serious conversation.
but did you challenge him on that and be like, "Tell me what it is," or did you
Yeah.
just leave it at that?
Yeah, I kind of because I respect his expertise and I respect, his care and love for me, I didn't challenge him right there on the phone because I knew we were gonna have a robust conversation the following day, but I was right away some bells and whistles were going off in my head, like, that's odd." Um, so he
Mm.
brings me in, and the following morning, my wife and I go in, and he sits down and it's like, he takes out my heart the graph that, like, goes up and down with your heart rate, and he's like, "Yeah, this isn't looking too great, this isn't looking too great." I don't know how to read that, but he's, saying it could be, some blockage, it could be this, but there's also this obscure thing that really only affects women, but could, like, once in a long, long while affect men. It's called SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. But he's like, "Yeah, I don't it's probably not that, but it's just something to be aware of."
Mm.
So he's like, we need to do a catheterization, right? They need to go through my wrist and put uh, a camera in my heart to kinda look around." He's like, "We're gonna
Yeah.
do that on Thursday." So that's 48 hours after having this conversation on Tuesday.
Mhm.
Go in go in for that catheterization, they prep me. Todd's also doing that. Doctor Fergus, I should say Doctor Fergus. Uh, he goes in, checks me out, waits for the sedation to kinda wear off 2 hours later. I'm in the room, the patient room, my hospital room with my wife and my mother. He comes in, he's like, "Hey, I've had a lot of people reach out to me, runners and friends, um, with symptoms similar to yourself, chest tightness, faintiness, um, lack of energy, but you're one of the first people that have there's something serious going on right now, and we're gonna walk side by side together, and I know running is a really big part in your life, and we're gonna get you back." But in the
Mm.
meantime, he started talking about all these results, and he found 7 clots in my right coronary artery, and
Mm.
he's like, "This is so obscure that I'm gonna refer you to Mayo." So now I go to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, which is,
What is Mayo? It could be that Americans are very familiar with
okay.
that, but I am not.
No, that's fine. So Mayo's like, one of the world's leading health institutions,
Mm.
and its reputation precedes itself. So he referred me to to a sports cardiology team at Mayo,
Mm.
and, so I went over there, and they diagnosed me with SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. Um, they think maybe I exerted myself too hard, but I wasn't doing anything differently that I hadn't been doing for the past, 25, 30 years. I think it just happened, and the treatment is to not really put in stents. There's talk of a little bit about doing a bypass, but it kind of the number one treatment option for this, and it never really happens in men. I'm part of 2 research studies, um, is, to just let it naturally, heal. So that's what we were doing. I've been going back to Mayo once a year, and now as of last April, they finally gave me a, clean bill of health, no ischemia. Ischemia is all this
So
terminology.
this April 2026,
2020 2025.
25. Okay, and what was that like 6 months after you
The
got this? Was it 2024 you said?
Yeah,
October 24?
2024, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like a year and a half l so, yeah, just they finally gave me a clean bill of health. So, it must've been last year. Last
Yeah.
year. Yep,
So just 6 months after or something like that then,
yep,
after you just got these symptoms. Yeah.
yep. So, they've said, "Look, I was signed up for the Boston. I didn't do it last year." But they've said, "If you ever feel that, those symptoms coming on again, you have to promise everybody that you love and yourself that you will step off the course and immediately call
Mhm.
it a day. And I have made a promise to myself that if I do feel like I was feeling for that week in October of 24, I will step off the course and I will just say it's not meant to be today. And I think that mental reassurance and that commitment and promise to everybody I love and care for um, has helped me get a PR this last month at Boston.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm playing with house money. I coulda and I think I went th I don't think, I know I went through this challenging situation and medical situation in my life because my priorities weren't necessarily where they should have been, um, and at first I was like, "Oh my gosh, why me? Why me?" But, I'm a faithful man and God isn't done with me, and there's other things that I need to accomplish and do um, before the end of my life. So,
Mhm.
like, the little things, how people's, opinions of me are, caring about that, social media, these worldly, desires that we all have, which are great,
Mhm.
but, they're kinda getting out of whack, and I think this was just a big wake-up call, and now, I'm in a really, really, really good place. I'm having wonderful conversation with you. I've got a loving family, I've got great friends, and my health has now been restored. So,
Yeah. Wow. It
yeah.
must have been pretty scary, and especially those days and like weeks where I'm sure like there were a lot of uncertainty and when you wrote to me, correct me if I'm wrong, then you wrote heart attack, right?
Yeah.
So so
That's
so is that what you were experiencing, minor heart
so
attacks?
I yeah, that's what the doctors use. That's a terminology that
Mhm.
they use. It's hard for me to say that, but yeah, it's 100% a heart attack. If they're
Yeah.
telling me it's a heart attack, it's a heart attack. And
Yeah, of course.
they also don't understand it's hard medically to explain how I didn't have a catastrophic event on my hands. Flight for
Yeah.
life, ambulance ride, ICU, um I think honestly, my physical fitness and was obviously very strong. God
Mhm.
had his hand on this situation. Um, but yeah, I can't explain it. It's a
Yeah.
miracle. It's
Yeah.
truly I think it's truly a miracle. And people people in my community here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, I know a lot of folks, but not necessarily outside of Green Bay, but I've had a lot of people come up to me, is like, "Hey, you didn't give up the sport you love. You got through that medical situation. You still have a pretty good disposition." Yeah, there's bad days and bad hours for me, just like all of us, but this has really been a I wouldn't wish this on anybody else, this experience, but it's really helped me refocus on why we're here, and
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Wow. And I want to ask you more about that as well. I have a feeling this will be a very meaningful conversation. Uh, but I think that because even you said it, like that's what the doctors told you. You have to believe that. Like it's almost like you're, I don't know, not excusing it, but it's like I think that a lot of people, and it sounds like including yourself, we will when we hear the word or the term heart attack,
Yeah.
we kind of like in the movies, you're like oh, and then you almost
Yeah.
fall over, and then you're like whether you survive or not, but like
Yep.
you're almost gone for a bit or forever. And I think that this is where this is interesting, and I think that obviously neither like none of us are doctors, so we're not going to give any medical advice
Yep.
here on the podcast. But there was actually a swimmer, professional swimmer from Norway. I have no idea if he had the same
Okay.
condition. He passed away, but he was for months actually experiencing something that they thought was a shoulder injury.
Wow.
So they were kind of trying to examine him and figure out what it was because he was struggling with his shoulder for a very long time.
Okay.
And then I remember after he passed away, because he passed away due to a heart attack,
Mhm.
and when they were looking into this later, they realized that he actually had several minor heart attacks happening
Wow.
all the time, where it just kind of was. I don't know, like hidden as a shoulder injury almost,
Wow.
right? And I think that this is something that, yeah, like your story, this story, it can serve as a great kind of warning sign to people who are experiencing something like what you
Absolutely.
experienced, right? Because it can be serious, although it's not
Yeah,
what we think is like with that. Yeah, I guess what we see in movies and stuff where people get this like pain and they stop breathing, and
absolutely.
it's in a very different way. And so all this to say, like, or to get to my question, that is, when you when you were talking to the doctors during this or after this, did they tell you something, or did they say anything about how important it was that you seeked help at the point where you did, or maybe also like that you should have seen or read the signs better from that first day? Because it almost sounds like you could have seeked medical help immediately when you started feeling like this, maybe even on that run that you were talking about.
I mean, absolutely. I think, looking back on it, hindsight 2020, I should have reached out at the beginning of the week as opposed to waiting 8 full days while I was going through this heart attack, SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. Um, because I had waited so long, I guess your body gives out, a hormone or something if you've had a heart attack, they can detect it in your
Hmm.
blood, and based on my understanding is I had waited too long that they couldn't use that as a metric to figure out if I had a heart attack. And I
Hmm.
think it's now being a teacher for the last 19 years and a counselor, obviously seeking help shows that you care, and whether that's physical, mental, spiritual, whatever it is, seeking help is really important. And from a guy's perspective, I know I've always struggled with that, and I know a lot of other men and young men that I'm around at the high school I'm at that wait and wait and wait and wait and wait to ask for help. So, like, if this could be an example for anybody out there, just to it's not a shameful thing to do. It's not a indication of weakness. It's um, ask for help if you're struggling with something. And I didn't even want to call Todd that Saturday morning.
Hmm.
My first comment to him, we talk all the time, but it was like, "Hey, sorry to bug you, but I'm kind
Yeah.
of feeling off." Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
because I was so calm about it, and because I wasn't taking it as serious as I should have been taking it, um, he probably was like, "Oh, okay, we'll check you out on Tuesday. Just
Mm.
lay low for a few days, and we'll see what's going on." Um, so yeah, I should have reached out at the beginning of the week, that first Monday night when I couldn't get from my living room to my bedroom, and when I felt after a half mile of running, even though I've been running for 25, 26, 27 years at that point. Never felt that ever. I felt a lot of things, right? Running's like a river. There's snags
Hmm.
everywhere, illness, injury, but I had never felt that. I should have just picked up the phone or walked myself into a hospital. Um,
Yeah.
my wife is not overly happy with me for doing that and taking that approach, but I've learned. And again,
Mm.
if this past, Boston Marathon, I felt a certain way at any point in the race, I would have just stepped off to the side of the road and yeah, would have called it a day and figured out how to get to the finish line and still would have celebrated the fact that I actually was able to get to the start line.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I guess like you were saying, you call up your friend Todd, Dr. Fergus, and you told them in a very casual way that something was off. And have you talked to him about this after this, in terms of like, because I assume that for him as
yeah.
well, he
Mhm.
might look back at this and be a little bit like, well, if I knew that you were actually experiencing these kind of symptoms, or if you didn't play it so cool, I would have told you to get get your butt into the ER immediately. What has those conversations been like for you guys after?
Um, we really haven't dissected that or discussed that part of the uh, situation. Obviously, if I would have been a little bit more forceful in my conversation with him, he would have gotten me in earlier.
Mm.
I knew that he was taking it serious. um, and he probably moved some things around to see me quickly. But and we've talked about we've gone on dozens of training runs together, and we did a
Yeah.
lot leading up to Boston. We'd meet downtown on the Fox River Trail, run 13 miles, get breakfast together, have great conversation, and maybe over that couple hours of spending time together, we'll talk about my heart thing for just a few minutes. But I know that he, like, wants me to wear my heart rate monitor, which I do, and I've
Yeah.
had a couple
Yeah.
times where on Strava, I've gone on a run and it's probably from dehydration or whatnot where my heart rate's, like, in the 160s, 170s, and he might say something like, "Hey, just you feeling good? Yep. Okay, great." And then we can both
Mhm.
go on knowing we have peace of mind that the reoccurrence rate is not, I'm not having a, relapse in my situation. I am part of a research study at Mayo, the other hospital I go to once a year, and they're following 200,000 endurance athletes. My first year after having the heart attack, I had a 30 based on their data, I had a 37%, relapse rate, but now it's in free fall, and because I'm a year out from having that heart attack, more than a year out, 2
Mhm.
years, now I'm, now I am, at a 5% relapse rate, and the data size is
Yeah.
200,000. But it's great to know that I have, like, a sports cardiology team that I could get a hold of this afternoon if I felt a certain way, and I know not everybody
Mhm.
has that, but because it was such a rare event, especially in a male, at 42 years old, that's, like, who keeps on eats fairly well and keeps sleeps fairly well and tries to do the little things and is, endurance athlete. I was like, "How is this possible that I'm going through this right now?" Um,
Mhm.
but it's a blip on the radar. I've learned from it. It's, again, like I said, I wouldn't wish it on anybody else, but it really has refocused my attention on why I'm here. Um, and I squeeze my wife a little tighter. I love my kids
Yeah.
a little bit more, and I don't know if I would have that today if I didn't go through that event. I honestly, that's that's the God given truth. So I'm very
Mhm.
fortunate, and just sharing that story with your audience, with anybody that's going to listen to this. Um, yeah, I get motivation from so many other people. I hope somebody can get motivation from that.
Yeah, and I think that is I think our mutual goal here today to help motivate, but also kind of I don't know, make people more aware of these things. Also the signs or symptoms that you experienced, and all of this is a rare thing to have for men. I guess like especially for the female listeners, it's maybe more important if it's more common for them to have it, but
Mhm.
also like yourself, it can occur with men as well, and it's important to talk about. And I guess like the most important thing here is that obviously you are okay. You're back to running, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, how is it possible that he is back running? Did you get any treatment? How did they or the doctors
Mhm.
approach this when you got to Mayo and you started getting help, and how is it that you've been able to kind of recover the way that you have?
So at first they wanted to put me on like a 50-pound weight limit, lifting weights. I like to lift weights including running. So I've been following that guidance, but obviously my weightlifting, they've green lighted me to go a little bit higher. But based on the conversations I've had from all the professionals, all the doctors, um, they've th- they've just said, "Hey, you got through this. You just if you feel it again, you just got to shut it down. You're gonna get help from us. Too many people rely on you, my children,
Mhm.
my family, friends, and this is a very, very serious thing. There's nothing they can, it's super serious, and yeah, they've been nothing but support. I think the world of them. Thank goodness, you know, these people helped me recover and get back to where I'm at. And now it's like 254 in a marathon 2 years after this. I couldn't have expected that in my wildest dreams because at the beginning they were talking about, well, if running's really important to you, we can look at a bypass or we can look at some pretty significant surgery for your heart. And now, in October in Chicago, I'm gonna see if I can go 250, low 250s,
Awesome.
and that would be
Yeah.
amazing. So yeah, it's been great. I know that I found that if I'm happy, I'm running the best. It's not the other way around,
Mhm.
and it's just life is a gift. We've all been given. We got to take advantage of all the opportunities that are presented to us in sports, out of sports. Um, but yeah, it was, and it still is something that is very serious. I'm
Yeah.
on a few drugs right now. I'm looking to hopefully
Yeah.
get off of them, but I'm on like something to break up clots, just in case a clot would form in my
Mhm.
heart. I'm on something that lowers my cholesterol a little bit, and I'm on a blood thinner. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's good stuff. So
Mhm.
that's just where I'm
Yeah.
at. I wanna be as transparent as possible, so people, if they
Yeah.
have questions like, "Oh my gosh," yep, just ask for
Mhm.
help if you feel like you need to
Yeah.
ask for help. I think at the end of the day, that's actually the virtuous thing to do, as opposed to
Yeah.
just keeping it to yourself.
Because I guess that was my question to like when you talk about this. Because obviously, I'm luckily knock on wood. I'm not familiar with this at all myself or with anyone close to me, and so my immediate thought is that, oh, you probably had to like you have a surgery or that you needed to undergo some kind of treatment. But did like so when you got to Mayo and you got help, was that mainly like getting guidance and getting the drugs you were talking about? Like, were those the things that they had to do for you to get back? What did it look like for you the first weeks or months after to kind of get back and get into that safe zone?
So right away, they put me on a regimen of slowly but surely. They wanted me to walk for a while, and then I could slowly run, and then I could start pushing myself more. I know that we did sit for like an hour together as a team with my wife included. We pulled up my Strava feed to look to see if there were any disruptions or anything they could pick up on before having this heart attack. Um, but now I'm gonna go back. I haven't been back for a year, but I'm gonna go back in late June just for it's a daily checkup. I'll meet with the team again. I'll do uh some testing in the morning. So it's yeah, it's they basically said you're good to go at this point. But please be cautious
Hmm.
moving forward for the rest of your life. This has already happened
Yeah.
once, but they don't think it's gonna happen again. But if it does happen again, now you know the symptoms, reach out for help
Hmm.
immediately. So, and I know, and I actually, another fortunate gift that came out of this was a young man, I guess, works construction around the area in Green Bay, just had SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection, and he was not in a great mental headspace. I was able to reach out to him. We've had one phone conversation. I'm hoping to have coffee with him here soon, just so I can not talk him off the ledge, but show him like, hey, yeah, you might be in a valley right now, but you can definitely get back up that peak. And
Yeah.
it's a temporary setback. It's unfortunate it happens, but if I can be of any support or a shoulder to lean on, based on my experience, the same thing. Because like it's even hard to kind of articulate this entire experience because
Hmm.
like we're literally one of one. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't happen a lot, and if it happens, it's 99% women. So happening to a male is very, very, yeah, the percentages are very, very small and low.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
But is this like a diagnosis that you get and that you'll have forever, or is it like a one-time incident? Like you said, they don't think it will happen again. Does that mean that it's kind of like the incident itself or the heart attack is called SCAD, and that you like you might get it again, but that it's not like a disease kind of or a diagnosis that you have to live with, or what is how does
Yeah,
this work?
it sounds like you just usually get it one time, and there's a
Mhm.
small reoccurrence rate, but, basically a tear in your artery wall. and
Okay.
in
Okay.
mine, it was a tear in my right coronary artery, and
Mhm.
if I sent you some of the X-rays, there were multiple blood clots that just kinda lined up with
Yeah. Yeah.
99% blockage, and so luckily, the beautiful thing about, the heart and the human body is I put down all these collateral arteries around it to bypass it.
Mhm.
So I had like a spider web or fingers of new arteries all over my heart that went around all these clots. And so
Yeah.
that's one thing that the Mayo Clinic and even Dr. Fergus and other doctors who have seen. I just showed it to somebody recently. He's just a surgeon. He's a friend of mine, and he's like, "Hey, can I see that again?" And they're like, "That's unbelievable. It looks like fingers or like yarn, string all over my heart with all these new blood vessels that
Wow.
were created to go around it. But now those have receded. So because the
Mm.
blockage is gone and because my right coronary artery has healed up, those those collateral arteries have now dissipated. They've reabsorbed into the human body, which is
Yeah.
unbelievable. Like how
Yeah.
miraculous, how wonderful. So
Bodies. Great. Our
yeah,
bodies are amazing.
it's
But
amazing.
for you, you mentioned that together with Dr. Fergus, you were kind of monitoring this thing with the heart rate on your runs, and like,
Mhm.
and you also said that you were able to start pushing a little bit more, and then as soon as you feel anything, you have to stop. How are you monitoring this with your heart rate? Because like obviously for me when I go out, I will have to look at my heart rate, but that is more in terms of intensity control. I don't really have to, or at least right now I'm not worrying about my heart being affected in a bad way, other than be like, oh, I shouldn't go that hard because it's going to affect my, the my training and my
Yeah.
next race. What kind of things do you have to look out for to make sure that you're in the safe zone?
Um, so I'm looking at it sometimes in real time at my heart rate data while I'm on a run, but mostly I'm going on feel and just knowing how um, it left a huge imprint. Those symptoms from a couple years ago. If I feel
Hmm.
anything like that, I need to just shut it down, walk home.
Yeah.
I'm also been coached by the team at Mayo and Dr. Fergus and others to tell people where I'm going. So if I'm going on my 5 or 6 mile
Yeah.
route that I love to run on, I tell my wife, I leave a note on the counter, "Hey, I'm running,
Mhm.
down Erie Road, left on Finger, left on Grandview. I'm just doing my 5 mile route."
Mm.
40 minutes, 50 minutes. If I'm not back within an hour and 15, an hour and 20, then something may be going on. So let people know. Yeah, let people know where I'm running. They've also
Mhm.
told me when I'm in a group of new runners together, let them know that, hey, I've had this situation, and I'm not
Yeah.
very good about doing this, but I've had this situation. If I take a knee or if I feel faint or I stop talking or I become short of breath, please get immediate medical attention for myself.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
need to do better of letting people know, but it's one of those things that's, sometimes hard to
Mhm.
talk about. I'm glad I'm
Yeah.
able to talk about it today. And I liked it was therapeutic to talk about it at the beginning, but now it's just
Mm.
part of not my identity, but a part of what happened in my life, and I've gotta put my best foot forward, learn from it, and yeah, double down on my support and care for others who may be going through something challenging in their life, physical or mental or whatever that may be. So,
Yeah.
yep, that's where I'm at.
Mhm.
So I know last
Uh,
weekend I sorry.
no, no, keep going.
Last weekend, I ran the Indianapolis Half Marathon with all those indie guys
Yeah.
that you have on.
Yeah,
So I
right,
saw
yeah.
some of them, shout out to those guys, and that's why
Uh-huh.
I kinda reached out to you also is I love the banter and the conversations that you have once a month with those
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, those are
So,
great.
it's
Or the
great.
guys are great. Yeah.
So last week I ran the half marathon. I did fairly well, not quite as well as my life. I had the race of my life last May at Indy. And if you're over
Mhm.
40 and you go sub 118, you get a elite bib, a comped bib. So I was able to get that with my name on it this year. So that was a first
It's
in my life. It was
amazing.
amazing. But looking at my heart rate data after last weekend, either I wasn't fully recovered from Boston 12 days later, or it was a little hot. I thought it was in, like, the 170s, high 170s,
Mhm.
and I probably shouldn't be doing that. I mean,
No.
but it's an hour and 18 minutes and 22 seconds, so I've got a little redemption right now to get back at a half marathon this summer so I can see if I can get below 118 to get that comp bib again. So I just missed it, but that's
Uh,
the highs and lows of this sport. And it was a great day being out there in Indy because that's where I
uh,
grew up. That's where I went to high school. I lived on the north side and just run into the speedway where the Indy 500 is run takes place in a couple weeks. It's 5 miles out, 2 miles around the track, and 5 miles back to the city. It's an awesome
mhm.
course. I think anybody listening right now, if you're looking for a half marathon, this is a hot take. It's just as good as Boston.
Awesome.
S
Yeah, they're trying to get me out there for November Monumental. So I'm not sure if it's going to happen this year. There are so many things happening, but I have been looking into it to see if there's a chance of going there and using that as like a long run before I'm doing
Absolutely.
Valencia in December. So we'll see what
Awesome.
happens.
That'd be great.
But Cassidy, we're talking about running, and I think it's easy that this conversation ends up being about how you got back to running and how
Mhm.
you're now
Mhm.
able to run again. And
Yep.
and honestly, that is obviously great, but that's also not the most important thing here. You like you said, you have a wife that you love and kids that you love, and you're a coach, and there are so many other things in your life that I'm sure, although running is a big part of it, it's not the most important, right? Uh, and so, what went through your head when head like going to the hospital and realizing that, oh, this is something that is a bit more serious than just you know whatever suspicion that you might have had when you first called up Dr. Fergus, and like what kind of thoughts went through your head? What were the conversations like with your wife and your kids? Because I'm sure it also, and you don't have to talk about like how they dealt with this, because I'm sure like
Mhm. Mhm.
that's private or like personal, but I'm sure it wasn't easy for them either. So like for you to have to tell them,
Mhm.
communicate that, and deal with that as a father and a husband, how was that?
Um, yeah, I mean, just talking to the family, my kids who, 15, 13, and 11 years old. So this was a couple years ago, and we still it comes up occasionally. Um, yeah, it was a pretty emotional conversation. This has happened to dad, but by the grace of God, he's still alive and he's
Hmm.
healthy and he's going to be here to support and care and um, be there with you at your side and a shoulder to lean on. Um, and then with my wife, every day is a gift. Most days are amazing. Sometimes, we have challenges together. I think like anybody in a relationship with two loving partners, and I love her dearly. She has been awesome. Seeing her at mile 17 at the beginning of heartbreak, those rolling hills was exactly what I needed in Boston. Um, but yeah, it was a tough conversation. And the only thing that, and she's completely right. The only thing that I probably should have not probably, I should have done differently was reach out for help a little bit earlier. Waiting
Hmm.
8 days was silly.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've pushed through a lot of things in the past, and I will continue to push through things that I probably shouldn't push through. Like
Hmm.
having a hard conversation with somebody, if it comes from an intent or a place of love, eh, it's always a great sign and a great conversation to be had. But I should have reached out for help earlier in the week. I
Yeah.
waited 8 days, and that was foolish because who knows what could have happened in the middle of the night while I was sleeping during those 8 days.
Hmm.
Like
But
getting 10.
when you look back, because like you've never experienced anything like that before, and you, like you said, as men we tend to I can relate to that. We tend to just brush it off and be like, oh, it's probably nothing, it's probably just like I didn't sleep that well last
Yeah.
night, or
Yep.
there's been a lot of things going on, blah blah blah. But looking back, if you're being honest, do you think that if you're being honest with yourself back then, that you kind of could have or should have known that this was a bit more serious than like some iron deficiency
Yeah,
or a cold or whatever.
yeah.
Do you feel like it was obvious, but that you were kind of just, guess, neglecting that this was what was going on?
Yeah, this was I was just using every excuse in my head to come up with, "This can't be as serious as" the symptoms appear, um,
Mm,
almost fainting, wanting to take a knee a half mile into running with the team, and that would have been absolutely tragic and unfair to those kids, 'cause I like run as a coach, I like running with the guys and girls, um, but if something would have really happened in front of them, that would have been scarring for them, and, I kept trying to push myself through what I was experiencing, but yeah, looking back on it, I kept saying, "Oh, I have a cold, I have a flu, I'm dehydrated."
mm,
No, eh, it just was not it wasn't
mhm.
those things, and, having a heart attack is what it is. A lot
Yeah.
of people will have heart attacks this year, but it doesn't mean, that you can't have a quality of life and get back to the passions and the pursuits that you, um, have done,
Mhm.
it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be the end, and it wasn't with me, thank goodness.
Yeah, thank God. And I think that this is where, you know, if this happened to me, I have, obviously I have my parents, I have my fiance, my dog and my cat. My dog and my cat wouldn't really worry about this happening again because they wouldn't know what was going on anyways. But my fiance would probably like, if this happened and I said that, oh, but now I'm gonna, get back up and I'm gonna run Boston again next year. I'm gonna run a marathon. I'm gonna go out for a run. And I'm sure that it would be hard for her, like for that first run that I went out for.
Mhm,
She would be like,
mhm, mhm,
last fall I actually had this thing where, yeah, you've been listening to the podcast. You know that last fall I was
mhm.
sick for quite a while,
Yeah.
and I didn't understand what it was, and I was, you know, it was hard to breathe and all of that. I actually did seek a doctor at the time, but I started all of a sudden I started getting some chest pain and like down my arm, and all those
Mm,
symptoms that you've been
mhm,
told that,
mhm.
okay, this is serious. But I also knew that I'd seen the doctor just the day before that, but then I remember I told Christine that, like, okay, now I'm going out and I'm feeling like this. So just like,
Yeah,
just be aware. I probably maybe it was even mean telling her that because there was nothing she could do or whatever. And then I called her and that was about something else. It was about something delivering a package. And she just, picked up the phone. She's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm fine." And uh, the reason I'm sharing this story is more that that is how
yep,
anxious she was about it. And she's not an anxious person in the first place, but that's how worried she was just because of some symptoms that I was experiencing that morning. While
yep,
you've had a heart attack and
mhm,
your family sees you going out for another run, how do you have, because when you were talking about this you said that the doctors told you that you needed to talk to your family or like be promise your family that you were
yeah,
going to stop as soon as you felt any
absolutely,
symptoms. Uh, uh, but how was it for you? Like, how was that conversation? Because I, I assume that you would kind of have to almost negotiate a deal to be able to go out for a run, and that they weren't really excited about you going back
yep,
out running for like that
yep.
first run or that first race that you did after this.
Yeah, they definitely were not excited about it, and I definitely had to make some deals and negotiations with my parents and my wife, um, but this is part of my identity, it's not who I am first and foremost,
Mhm.
but they know that, it's therapeutic, running improves your mood, your, cognition, I'm just a better spouse to my wife, I'm a better
Yeah.
parent to my kids if I had this in my life, but, yeah, there was my first run back, I can remember going on this trail, and my wife, Jamie, gave me her Apple Watch, even though I had a Garmin and I had a
Hmm.
Polaris that told me my heart rate, and she's like, "I want you to look at all 3 data points. Are you sure you should be doing this? I don't know if
Yeah.
this is healthy. Why can't we just get into walking together or maybe even riding a
Hmm.
bike where it's not quite as exerting?" And all great points, but I'd been doing it for so long, and again, I made the promise to her like I made the promise to so many other people, and my doctors included.
Mhm.
If things didn't feel good, I would step off to the side. And maybe I got back into it a little bit too early, but I think the greatest thing is last April being told that I don't have any more lack of oxygen to the heart, and the
Yeah.
collateral
Mhm.
arteries are now reabsorbed into my heart, and I've got a clear pathway for blood to move around my heart. Doesn't mean that I'm not out of the danger zone yet and out of the woods, but at least that prognosis has, given peace of mind to myself and my wife and my kids and my parents and my brothers and my friends and other people who really care for me and myself. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot of negotiating though. And sometimes I think, am I
Mhm.
being selfish here wanting to run? Am I putting myself in danger at all to not be here for my kids, not be here for myself? And I've had, I've looked at my shoes, I've prayed about it, I've discerned about it. I've looked at my shoes for 15, 20 minutes like, "Ugh, maybe I
Mm.
shouldn't go for a run today. Maybe I should go for that walk." But
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know I'm a better person when I get done with that run. And,
Yeah.
it's given me so much. I've met so many amazing people. I've had so many wonderful experiences. And, you know, the design of Earth, to be able to traverse Earth on a run, there's nothing better, whether it's a big city like Boston or the trails behind my house.
Yeah.
It's a gift that keeps on giving. And if I
Mhm.
can lead as a coach, I try to show my athletes on the team, at my age, mid 40s, you can still experience a sport and have joy and happiness for the sport. Um, and if I can bring one more person to running via this conversation or whatever, somebody I come
Mhm.
across, like, it doesn't matter what speed you're running, doesn't matter how long you're running. It's a wonderful sport. It's great. And
Yeah.
it's I wish I didn't have that
I
event, but I had it. So
No, but I totally agree with you, and I think that this is like how it's different how people look at it, right? I know that you've been listening to a lot of the episodes,
Mhm.
and I don't know if you've been able to listen to the one with Archie Hunt yet, where he was, he ran a 2:27 in London, and he has a heart condition as well, and it was really inspiring to hear his take on this, and also he doesn't have a wife and children, but it's still, obviously he still has people around him that
Yep.
care about him deeply, and so he needs to be careful. But the thing that he's done and what he's been told is to adjust his training a little bit so that he's able to control this. And he ended up doing zone 1 and 2 training only, and
Right.
now he's a 2:27 marathoner with that training. And the reason I'm bringing him up is that I'm curious. I said before that we're going to talk more about your running before this, but it doesn't seem like we have time for that today. But for the listeners to understand, and anyone who's kind of experiencing or experienced anything like you, I'm sure they are a bit curious about how your training has been or has changed after this. Like, are there any things other than being more cautious with the and being more aware of the symptoms and signals that your body will send you? Have Did you have to change your training at all in terms of intensity, in terms of, you know, are there changes to your training now compared to what it was like before the incident?
Yeah, I think as a aging runner, as just an aging marathoner, my training has changed in the last couple of years. The classic workout that I love to do 2 weeks out prior to a marathon is the Yasso 800s. Usually it's 10,
Hmm.
but now I'm finding myself after 7 saying, "Hey, it was a great session. I could go another rep or two, but let's just call it a day. You're walking out of here healthy. The hay's in the barn. It's the little things, not staying up late, eating a little cleaner. Um, and I think the intensity is slowly but surely returning. But I've had to, like, I used to hit between 60 and 70 miles for a month or two leading up to a marathon. Now I'm in the 50s, and
Hmm.
that's totally good with me. Um, I've found myself occasionally getting into a pool just to swim for 30 minutes to give my body a break. Not only my heart, but just my joints and my knee and my hamstrings and my hips because God willing, I'm able to do this for, the next few decades. I'd
Yeah.
love to be one of those 10, 80-year-old plus runners at the Boston. I mean, that's just incredible, but
Yeah.
we'll see how that plays out. But I know that, Dr. Fergus has said, Todd, my buddy, that he would like to come on and chat with you at some point soon,
Yeah.
so maybe
I
the 2
would
of us
love to
can
do
come
that.
back on there.
That would be great. That would be amazing because I did look him up when you told me about him. He ran, was it 238 or 239 in
In
Chicago?
Chicago, yeah. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He's a
At
beast.
50
50,
years old?
50 years old.
Yeah, wow. Wow. Yeah, no, that would be a lot of fun actually to have you both on to just chat about running, and then we can touch more on. I think that would be a great idea. Then we can talk more about
Yep,
your Boston experiences as well.
absolutely.
Are you going back to Boston next year? Is that the plan?
Yeah, it is. It's a plan.
Yeah,
So my Chicago time is 2:59, so I based on the cutoff, that was gonna be, a coin flip whether I got in, but I think now being 10 minutes below the 3:05 cutoff, I'm gonna be able to clearly, I'm gonna be able to get back in, and as long as I
yeah,
keep qualifying, I'm heading back. It's the best weekend.
yeah. Me
Seeing
too.
the Red Sox, going to the North End for a
Yeah.
meal, spending time with my friends and my wife, we
Hmm.
always look forward to it, and I somebody just told me recently that I guess at 45 to 49, it jumps up by 10 minutes. There's only a few times where the
Oh
BQ
yeah,
jumps up by 10
yeah,
minutes. So
yeah.
I don't know how many more sub threes I've got in me. Probably not many, but somebody's like, oh, they're giving you an extra 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So whoever decided on that at the BAA, thank you very much. So
Well, you have to promise me one thing for next year, and
for
that is
sure.
that if you see me, please
We're going to
come
meet up.
over and say hi. Yeah.
We have to. We've got to meet in person
Yeah,
next
for
year.
sure. For
So
sure. Hey, Cassidy, thank you so much for sharing your story. I hope that this will help a lot of people. I think that it's cool that you're so open about it, and it's also really good to see where you're at
Mhm.
now. I appreciate you reaching out, and I also want to give you credit for. I told you before we started recording, and that's something that I, as a podcast host, I just really appreciate when, because you emailed me. I don't know when we started talking. Maybe it was the beginning of the year, or was it in
Yeah,
December?
I think around
Just
February or
yeah,
January. Mhm.
yeah, and just like having that conversation back and forth,
Yeah,
exchanging some thoughts and ideas, and
that's
also now
great.
finally getting here. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for what you're doing too. You've got a wonderful way of, interacting with the community, of running, and from the elites to weekend warriors like myself and people who've had setbacks, so keep doing what you're doing. We really appreciate it. I look forward to all the episodes when they drop. It's great to commute to and from school, so thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And let's have you back on with Dr. Fergus or Todd. That will
For
be fun.
sure. Absolutely.
Thank you so much to Cassidy for coming on. I really appreciate that. I hope that you, as a listener, also appreciate it, and maybe you can take something away from it. If you want to support this podcast, please give this podcast a review, share it with a friend. That's all I need for this podcast to kind of keep on growing. The best way of share or making this podcast grow even more is to share it with someone that you know. And I would really appreciate your help in doing so. In the next episode of the Marathon Podcast, we'll have Howard on. And Howard is UK based, or he is a British runner. And he's got some really, really impressive times behind him, most likely also in front of him. And he's not a young runner, but he has a bit of a, I guess, untraditional way of training, and can't wait for you guys to hear that one. At least that one inspired me a lot, and here's the reason why I want to start doing a bit more trail running going forward. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Really appreciate you being here, and I'll talk to you in the next one. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wild Studio and me.